not necessarily better.
Okay.
You don't practice your training in a house of pain. You know, it's, even though those things were prevalent. I mean, I worked out in a school that had that on the wall, you know, so accepting pain and not understanding what pain means.
Right.
And resting more and paying more attention to my diet.
Yeah.
And
Are you looking for a way to drive growth, sales, communication, and retention in your academy? Kovar Systems 6-month Program Director course is designed to help members of your team thrive in the important role of Program Director. With step-by-step training, we will cover a wide range of topics, including prospect follow-up, overcoming objection, and securing enrollments. Our program will teach your team members to effectively communicate the values and benefits of martial arts, which can be a game changer in securing more enrollments at your academy. Our next 6-month course starts on this date. So don't wait and visit our site, www.kovarsystems.com, to get your team enrolled in the upcoming course. Again, that's www.kovarsystems.com. Enroll now and get ready to see some real results in your business.
Welcome to the Satori Lifestyle Satori Masters Podcast, the ultimate resource for ambitious, hardworking school owners that want to get their business and their life to the next level. My name is Dave Kovar. I'm a lifetime martial artist, business owner, speaker, and author. My goal is to empower listeners with the knowledge and the tools they need to break through barriers and really get their business and their life to the next level. Thanks for watching and enjoy. Welcome to the Satori Masters Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Kovar, and right now I'm with one of my best friends in the world, a lifelong friend, Tom Callos. How you doing, sir?
great to be here in Sacramento, Master Dave. Thank you for the interview.
Yeah. Hey, well, we're mumbling a little bit. We are right now, what's going on is the tail end of the first day of our ProMAC International event. We're in downtown Sacramento. We've got hundreds of martial artists from all over the country. Actually, we have some people from the UK and Germany here as well, and kind of our event is about, it's about, these are for professional martial artists. It's really about celebrating what we do and becoming better at it. And, you started training as a kid and, just kind of first off, tell me why you think training in martial arts, what unique thing does it bring to the table? There's a lot of great stuff that someone can do. Why martial arts?
Well, martial arts is something you do in a group, but it's not a team sport. So you can practice anywhere. You don't have to follow the rules of football and it's also cultivates development of the right and left side of the brain. It keeps you physically fit, but more importantly, I think, is that it makes you mindful about what you're doing in the present moment. You have to, when you're sparring or you're grappling, there's no thinking about the future or what just happened. I mean, you can, it just makes you less, you're not as high functioning in that place. But so it's an immediate focus on the present. And there's so much about meditation that is hidden in there, in the movement and in the practices, that we don't give it enough credit. But it really is healthy for the brain, healthy for the body, good for your attitude. And it's been a lifelong pursuit of mine, and we've spread it, you and I, among thousands of people and our peers, and I think it's good for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like what makes, I think, martial arts unique compared to other things is, first off, from a fitness standpoint, it's right side, left side, upper body, lower body, rotational movement, lateral movement, circular movement, strength, flexibility, endurance. The list goes on and on, right? Like, you do martial arts, you're going to be better at other sports. But here's the other thing is that, the hidden ingredient, I think, is the self-defense aspect, in that as an instructor, it obligates us, especially with kids, because we're teaching potentially dangerous techniques, it obligates us to really swing the pendulum and teach the importance of courtesy and respect and self-control. And those are a lot of lessons they may not get from doing other activities.
They may get it, but you have to have somebody, when I was consulting with school owners, I would say, if you can't hear what I'm saying, find someone you respect enough to listen to. And a lot of times the martial arts teachers put in that position of respect, and the children their minds are open to it, they accept it. And so my instructor said the same things my dad would say, but I'd say, "Hey, Dad, guess what I heard today?" And I'm sure he was looking at me like, "Well, you little twit."
So I got to share a story. So my son Alex was was about 7 or 8 years old. Okay, and we were at there used to be a chain called what the heck was it? It wasn't. It was a restaurant chain called Eat Your Vegetables, right? And it was this really cool chain, and loved going there. And there was never soda in our. I've never had soda in the house when the kids were growing up. Now, if they're at a birthday party and they want to have a 7-Up, whatever, it's just not going to be a habit to do it. And so, and one of the lessons that we teach our kids, one of the messages of the week is when you're thirsty, drink water for thirst, and soda for kind of a fun thing every now and then. So we're at Eat Your Vegetables, and we sit down. He's got his water, and he said, "Dad, can I get a Sprite?" "Yeah, sure, get a Sprite, son." So we sit down, and he goes, "Hey, Dad, I need to get some water." And I go, "What's up, Alex?" He goes, "I'm really thirsty, and Sensei told me if I'm really thirsty, I need to drink water." And I'm thinking, if I would have told him as his dad, he wouldn't have heard it, but he heard that from his martial arts teacher, right? Yeah. One of my guys, by the way, right? And so it really is valuable. And the other thing I think it's interesting, it's not just kids, it's people of all ages, but people remember stuff when they're mentally, emotionally, and physically involved, when they're in that peak state. And, as an instructor, we get students to that level. We get them all in, right? Present focus. And that's when, we can drop all kinds of stuff into their head, so to speak, that can be either good or bad. We were talking earlier, and do you want your students to be Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader? You know what I'm saying? It's
good leadership and people who. I was talking to Hickson Gracie recently, and we were laughing because the truth is that most jiu-jitsu teachers are young people, and they don't have a lot of life experience. So the advice you get from them or the character development may or may not be credible yet, and yet they have the stamina and the interest to be there 7 classes back to back, rolling with all the students, whereas older men and women who might have enough tread off their tires to give good advice, sometimes we lack the stamina. Not Bill Wallace, of course, but most of us.
Right.
It's hard to stand 7 classes, roll with your students, do the warm-up. So it's good that you're doing this podcast series and interviewing, more senior master people, because the next generation has to hear it, whether they can hear it at the time they first hear it, or whether it's the echo of it that they hear down the road.
So let's think about that for a minute. So we've known each other since we were kids, and we're not anymore. At least my wife would say I'm still a kid, but mentally, maybe emotionally, but not actually physically. But what would you tell that just friggin' 28-year-old hardcore dude that thinks he's going to live forever and he's never going to hurt himself? That would help him, kind of be able to continue to train for life. What would the message be that you would tell that guy?
It's about kindness and compassion and love and introspection and mindfulness, and it's not about the physical aspect of training is important. It's vital. It helps to cultivate transformation, but it's really the root of the value of what we do is the way we treat each other, the way we overcome obstacles, the way we make so many mistakes during training, but just act as if they didn't happen and move forward. And those things are things that you can practice whatever it is that you pursue as a career, whether you're an attorney or a doctor or a teacher. You take what we practice on the mats. It's meant to be practiced off the mats and to have little or nothing to do with hurting other people, but to take the courtesy, the focus, the concentration, the awareness, the being in the moment. And so when you're facing an obstacle at work or in your career or at school, you've got these practice tools you can pull out to apply to it, despite the fact that nobody's wearing a gi or
right.
You're not scoring points. So it's, as I get older and look back and squeeze the essence out of what I have from the training, what was the result? It's more patience, it's more kindness, it's forgiveness. It's all those character traits that we know are noble and important, but we don't always practice them as much as we could. But every class is a small practice session for all these things that, as an instructor, we should be pointing out. Well, I just taught everybody to punch, right? And all the kids say yes. And I said, how much a punch is worth? And I hold my fingers real close together. It's not worth anything. But the ability to focus, the ability to work together as a team, the ability to apply yourself in the moment fully, now that's worth about $100,000 a year. Companies are begging for people who know how to overcome obstacles and not take no for an answer necessarily if they need a yes. And all these things that you do without even thinking about it on the mat in the practice of your martial art.
Really good. Now, it's more specifically that's something that you and I, if we had this conversation when we were 30, that's not what you would have said, by the way. It would have been a little different. That's come with a lot of wisdom over time, right? Now, it would be specifically, you've overcome 4 hip replacement surgeries, right? And part of that is because, you trained hard, and if you don't mind me saying, as your friend, you were hard on your body. It was kind of like, you know what, darn it, I know what hurts, I'm going to do it anyway, right? So what would you tell your 30-year-old self? What would you tell your 30-year-old self to do different?
More is
when it comes to fitness, the martial arts and fitness.
More is not necessarily better.
Okay.
You don't practice your training in a house of pain. It's, even though those things were prevalent. I mean, I worked out in a school that had that on the wall, so accepting pain and not understanding what pain means,
right?
And resting more and paying more attention to my diet, and I'm sure somebody along the road was telling me. It's
sure, and every now and then, you like you can get through to somebody. I know for me, it's like I have a few rules that I follow, and part of it was, how long has it been since you had your hips replaced?
No, I had the last one done about 2 or 3 years
ago.
No, but
when your first time?
I was 40.
So 25 years ago or 23 years ago or something. All right. So, and I remember when that happened, and at the time, I know you'd had hip issues before that, and I'd seen other people start to get their hip replaced. And so I started backing off on a lot of hard kicking and large stretching, and because I didn't want that to happen. Right. And so I backed off a bit. And one of the things one of the rule that I've kind of followed for several years now, and I call it the 80% rule. And that is that I try, and I'm pretty good about quitting when I still have 20% left gas in my tank, because almost every injury I've ever had was at that last round, when I'm really fatigued and I do one more thing. And so now I'm not training for the big fight. I'm training for life. I don't want to, pull my back out getting groceries out of the back of the car. I want to be fit enough to, if I want to go on a hike, I can, or if I show up to somebody's school, I can do a few rounds of sparring or grappling and not embarrassing myself. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like I think the sweet spot for me, and what I would tell my 30-year-old self would be consistently undertrain. And let me explain what I mean by that. We know that consistently overtraining is stupid and dangerous. Right? Right? We also know that inconsistently overtraining is probably worse. Haven't done anything forever and you try to do a deadlift record. That's going to get you hurt. And then on the flip side, inconsistently undertraining is a waste of time. Every 3 months you show up one time at the gym and you grapple for 20 minutes and you leave. It's a waste of time. Right? So I think the sweet spot is to be consistent, but to underdo. That would be what I would tell someone as they're aging.
That's a really good observation. When I had my first 2 hips done, I was teaching still, and I had to ask the doctor, how do I keep this from happening in my athletes? And he said, well, coincidentally, he'd been working on a PGA golf study, and he squeezed it down into just a short paragraph. He said the study culminated in us understanding that, because the typical way to practice was you'd go out on the range and you'd hit 1,000 balls. That was kind of a thing. And he said, that's not the way to do it. You go out and hit 100 balls, but with absolute full mental focus. Mm-hmm. So I took that afterwards. It was a day late and a dollar short. I'd already worn out my hip joints, but I started passing that on to my students.
So one of the things that I've really admired about what you've done is that, you're as passionate about martial arts as anybody is, and always have been, and you're not able to do it to the same level that you'd like. And especially you fell in love with jiu-jitsu in the 90s, and that was and I have as well, right? And so that was something that I know is really hurt, because your body's not really allowed you to do it to a level that you should. And it's wise that you're backing off on that, but you felt this, you've filled that void by pouring your spirit into your artwork, right? And now all of a sudden you've got art, you're in several
museums,
and although you dabbled younger, you really didn't start this until seriously until a few years ago. And what you did, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you took that passion you had for martial arts that you weren't able to do to the level you'd like, and you said, all right, man, I'm following those concepts and I'm pouring it into my art. Would you comment on that?
Well, I've heard that Musashi said, and I didn't hear him say it because I'm not that old.
You're pretty old, though.
Yeah, but he said, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, master one thing, you can master anything, all things. And I think my shtick as an artist is, hey, I'm taking what I learned as a martial arts practitioner and applying it to art, which is mindful repetition, not putting too much emphasis on any single workout, knowing that it's cumulative, and not worried about winning or losing, but learning. And that makes me still a martial artist. And because, I think about that in hindsight, when you squeeze out what did I learn, it's not technical. It's how to cope with depression, how to deal with divorce, how to overcome the obstacles that sometimes can trip people up, and how to stay sane in a world that's not always sane. And so those things you can use all the time. But if I were teaching as a young 30-year-old again and I knew those things, I would use more opportunities to point them out. I did the best I could at that age, but later, when you're 30, you think, I've got it. And you turn 40 and you go, I was really
and you know what? And we think of ourselves kind of like, been around the block. And you talk to someone like Bill Wallace, who's, older, the next generation, or like our parents, who would look at us like, you're still kids, right? It's all relative. Yeah.
When I was 20 and 30, I knew everything. In fact, I would stand in front of my students and say, ask me any question about martial arts, and I would come up with an answer, be it the truth or not. And as I've gotten older, I realize I don't pretend to know anymore. In fact, it's more beneficial to just keep an open mind and look at both sides. And I'm still opinionated about things. It's the nature of being human, but I don't know as much as I used to.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good observation. I would feel the same way. And, one of the other things I would tell somebody that's kind of like, let's say, wanting to get involved in martial arts or something, or, let's talk fitness for a second. I recently had a friend of mine that's never exercised much, and he started CrossFit, okay? And this was a guy in his late 40s. And the first thing he goes, I'm really sore. I go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm doing CrossFit. And first thing I asked him is, how old is your coach? And he said, I don't know, he's a really good, nice guy. He's about 26, 27 years old. And I said, quit right now. And this is my opinion. Sorry, by the way, I think CrossFit's amazing. It's the right thing for a lot of people. But that 27-year-old CrossFit coach does not understand what a 50-year-old body moves like.
I didn't, for sure.
Yeah, and they're going to get them hurt, right? That's what happened to me with it. It's kind of like if you're going to do CrossFit and you're older, find an older coach that's doing CrossFit, and talk, because he understands the body. And it's the same thing with martial arts. I think what's really dangerous if you go into jiu-jitsu as a middle-aged person and you've never done this before is to find some young, hot-shot 28-year-old black belt to be your teacher, because he thinks he knows how the body functions, but he hasn't been through the crap yet.
That was the essence of my conversation with Hickson, was that it's the older athletes that are better teachers, because, and you're such a better teacher when you get injured, because you come back to class and you've got compassion and empathy, and you're more cautious.
Yeah, well, I think about the way you and I used to run classes, and I can't tell you how many people that were injured on my watch that was because of the way I was teaching classes, and I didn't know better, and now it's like, wisdom comes from experience remembered. Now I know how to pair people off and what to watch for, and it doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but I'm a way better instructor, way safer because of all those experiences growing up.
The other side of that is that you can't teach what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so anybody listening to this who's a teacher, martial arts teacher, etc., you have to say, well, what am I studying? What am I learning? You don't teach about diabetes, even though 1 in 3 children are affected by diabetes in today's world, type 2, which is preventable, because you don't know anything about diabetes, so you're not talking about it, even though it's a self-defense issue. Yeah. You're not talking about things that you just have no experience, so it's up to us. It's a responsibility to step out of the dojo and learn about fitness and health and mental health, because all those are far more important to self-defense than is a blocker.
I've shared this story with you, I think, below, and I think maybe in another podcast I might have shared this story, but I have a friend of mine. He's a really good guy. He's really into, Filipino weaponry especially. And by the way, I'm a Filipino weaponry. I've been doing it forever, and I respect it. But I'm having lunch with him one time, and part of the thing, if you practice Filipino martial art, is it's a blade culture, and you're usually going to have 2 or 3 blades on you, right? So he goes, "Hey, Kovar," he goes, "What? We're having lunch." He goes, "What are you packing right now? What do you have on you?" And I didn't have anything on him, right? I used to carry a knife pretty frequently, but it was more, I was more for utility, but I kept on losing it going through security at the airports because I'd forget to take it out. So it got expensive. So I quit carrying. When he goes, "What, you don't have a knife blade on you?" And I go, "No, man." And he goes, "Well, what, what if you get attacked in a back alley or something? What are you going to do?" And I looked at him and I thought, "So why do you carry a blade? What is your reason?" He goes, "Well, I want to defend myself." And I go, and I kind of led him on a little bit. I go, "Is it because you want to live a life?" "Yeah, man. I want to live a long time. I want to be able to." And as he's eating a double cheeseburger with extra bacon, you know what I'm saying? And I'm looking at him. He goes, "He's not going to. No, you're not going to die in a back alley knife fight, buddy. You're going to die from some kind of heart disease, diabetes, something that could have been avoided possibly based on your lifestyle." And to your point, is that true self-defense isn't just defending yourself against the bad guy. Nothing wrong with knowing that. It's defending yourself against sickness, injury, apathy.
Well, you know that if you one time I came across an article and from that day on, I'd had an epiphany. I turned a corner. Top 10 killers of men, women, and children in Western nations. Martial arts, kicking, punching, choking wasn't on the list. And I asked some martial arts teachers just last week in an interview, what's the number one killer of children in America? And they didn't know. And so how do you teach self-defense if you're not actually talking to people about the things that are killing people or, causing great harm, medical emergencies and all that could be avoidable? So we have to expand what we know and get your nose in a book, go to the lectures, listen to the tapes, and you'll expand as a teacher in ways that you will never probably learn in a dojo, that you will in the future because you bring those things in and teach what you know.
And why that's so important, once again, we touched on earlier, is because when you got a group of students, people of all ages, but especially kids, because they're maybe more moldable, they're like the empty sponge, is that we kind of owe it to them. We've got this captivated audience that's listening to us, to the point
you
that we're
never
talking.
know. Well, you tell a great story about somebody who said, you do something really well, and immediately to yourself in your young brain you said, "Oh, I do that really well."
Yeah.
And I remember that story when I'm teaching, because you just never know what it is. That's why the repetitious nature of what we do is beneficial. It can be boring sometimes, it's repetitive, but sometimes you get through, and those lessons can last the rest of your life.
100%.
I'm 63, so I'm still, I'm just now starting to listen to the things my dad said.
Yeah, right. Amazing. Well, I appreciate your time and your friendship, and I just would shout out to all the people out there that if you're first off, if you're training in martial arts, continue on. If you're teaching, if you're running a school, make sure that you make it more than just teach great martial arts, but make it more than that. Make it more than that, because it's such a vehicle to really.
Life is more than that.
Yes.
And somebody asked me one time about violence, because we were doing television and movies, and I had a student who was fighting in the UFC, and they said, it's so violent. And I said, violence belongs in the ring. It can belong in fiction. It doesn't belong on the streets where innocent people can be killed. When you fight in the ring, it's two people who agree, who are well trained. There's a referee, there's an appreciative audience. That's where the violence belongs. It doesn't belong in a city street, with car bombs and
it's a great perspective. And if you don't understand, if that doesn't make sense, you don't really. It's kind of one of those things that, like, I don't like to see people hurt, but I have nothing but respect to watch two really high level competitors go at it.
Somebody there can break it up if it gets out of hand.
And also it's kind of, at some level, it's part of our nature, and it's embracing our shadow. You know what I'm saying? It's like giving us a chance to kind of step into the unknown and test our skills.
One takeaway from anybody listening is find out what the top 10 killers of men, women, and children are in the world, and see if your curriculum or the things that your instructors and you are talking about even put the toe in the water on those things. And if not, then start with the first one and get yourself an education. There's more material on just about anything, from twiddlywinks to how to make a gourmet meal online. You can find it, but make sure that you and your staff are spending an appropriate amount of time expanding your knowledge, because it'll directly reflect on the things that are happening on the floor.
Outstanding. Well, thanks, Tom, for your friendship and your time. And you guys on the audience, thanks for tuning in today. And make sure to check out if I want to check out your art, where would I go?
TomCallos.com.
There you go, man.
This commercial was brought to you by TomCallos.com.
Take care, my friend. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in today to our podcast. I hope you found it valuable and inspirational. To stay connected, please subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you go for your podcasts. If you enjoyed today's show, please give us a 5-star review. And we really sincerely would appreciate some feedback. Your feedback helps us to create high-quality content that will help others in the future. If you'd like to follow me, you can go to Dave Kovar on Facebook or Hanshy Dave Kovar on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on next episode.